Hello and welcome back to the Inspiring Growth YouTube channel. So today I want to talk about what the reason why and what led me to give up alcohol. Now it's 30 degrees here in Port Macquarie and I can't have my air conditioning going while I'm recording, so excuse me if I get a sweat mo. Right, so growing up, I grew up in the 90s and you know, my parents were quite young. I think mum and dad had me at 23, 24. So when I was little, we would always go to parties on the weekends and everyone would be drinking and dancing and having a good time. And as a kid, I'd then, you know, I don't know, there's like a meme that talks about how as a kid you want to go to bed. So you just find anything that's like a rug and you chuck it over you and just fall asleep underneath the, you know, drinks table or whatever. So that was kind of growing up. It was all normalised drinking, and then, you know, and watching movies as I become a teenager. So then I had this before I had my horse accident. I was a mad rebel kid. I was so naughty. I was one of the boys. Me and the boys used to try and make the teachers cry. That was our goal, to try and make the teachers cry. Like, how horrible at 12, 13 years old. And then I had my horse accident and I had this massive shift where I just wanted to be good at school and I wanted to do well at everything, so I stopped being naughty. And I mean, then because I had my brain injury as well and I had learning difficulties and things like that, so it was a lot different to me. So I'd still go to I'd still go to parties with my friends or go hang out with my friends at their house and they'd be drinking, but because of my brain injury I wouldn't drink, because if I did, I drank sometimes, but if I did, it made me really slow, like I couldn't speak. I don't know if you have noticed, but I speak quite slow, and what appears to be thoughtful, right? So that is a consequence of my brain injury, because it's not easy for me to form sentences. So obviously this is 23 years since my accident. So I've learnt and evolved and grown. But so when I drink, I speak really slow. It makes my brain not work. And so my friends thought it was funny. Anyway, so we're hanging out, you know, little teeny boppers, and they're all drinking. And then I remember being like, I don't know how old I was, like young teenager, and that was later, like when I was 16, 17, I would hear my parents' friends say things like, oh, I wish I could do that. So they'd be drinking and they'd say, I wish I could do that. Now I have kids, I can't do that. And, you know, they would just kind of say things that would shock me. I was like, oh, that's a really weird thing for a parent to say. And so it was like, I could see that when they would drink, they would be different people to who they normally were. And then it was 16 when I went, like, I tried to be involved and do everything with everyone else, and then I was like, everyone come to my party, and they were like, is there going to be drinking? And I'm like, who cares? And they're like, well, if there's no drinking, I'm not coming. And I was like, well, fuck you. There is no drinking, right? That's my inner rebel. That's like, if you actually appreciated me as a friend, it wouldn't matter if there was drinking. And so from then on, I just kind of realized how people didn't want to do things that didn't involve drinking. And so a way that I, try and prove my point, right? So then I wasn't drinking. So I'm going out to parties, everyone else is blind drunk. I also witnessed a lot of my friends when I was a teenager get really, really drunk and get themselves in situations that weren't so good. You know, a couple of my friends were sexually assaulted, and I was like, oh gee, that's not something that I want to experience, so I'm gonna stay away from drinking. And so then I was 16, 17 and going to my friends' parties and not drinking, and I was just having a great time, and people were like, oh my god, Lauren, you're so drunk. And I was like, I actually haven't had anything to drink. And they're like, are you crazy? And I was like, yeah, like I can enjoy myself. And they're like, oh, I can't, like I need to have a drink. And so I just saw this huge reliance of other people on alcohol, and so I was like, I'm not drinking, right? So then hit 18 and get some freedom, and I was like, whoa, let's drink, let's party. Actually that happened, I had a boyfriend until I was just turned 18, so that kind of happened after then as a way of like coping. Now I can see that a lot of people, and I don't know if this resonates for you, but my friends, when they were teenagers, they used alcohol as a way of, escaping, coping, and, adults nowadays do that as well. So then broke up with him because he said that he wanted to marry me, and I was like, whoa, I'm 18. and then I started drinking, and then so something happened in my life when I was 19, and that pushed me to want to try and escape. So, and I was seeing everyone else drinking and partying, so I was like, right, let's do that. And so then I went like hardcore and was partying like five nights a week on bloody Centrelink, goon bags, like one drink when you get to the bar, like had it all planned and mapped out and sorted. And so that went like that for quite a while. I went to uni for 3 months because, that's what you had to do. You had to go to uni, get a uni degree in order to make it in life. So I was like, okay. And I wanted to do psychology, so I went, and then I did O week, and after 2 weeks of drinking I got really, really sick, and I had to go back home because I couldn't look after myself. My mum had to look after me. And then and I was home for 2 weeks, and then I come back to start uni, and then that was full of parties and drinking and having a good time and everything. And then like 3 months in, I was like, this is shit, I don't want to do this anymore. And then anyway, then I ended up moving to Queensland and getting a full-time job, which I loved. It was door-to-door sales, and I was the manager within a month, and so I had my own car, and they paid for my accommodation, and it was just really fun, and I would just party all the time. I lived at a backpackers, so yeah, it was awesome, and I loved it. And then I was out partying one night for my friend's 21st, and I met this guy, And I invited him home, and then the next morning he asked for my number, and I said, I'm not giving you my number. I don't want to be a booty call. If you know, you should know enough about me to find me online, you know, and if you want to, then that's fine. And then funny thing, 3 days later he messaged me and he was like, oh hey, it's Andrew. And I was like, who's Andrew? I didn't even know his name. I didn't remember. And anyway, so then we dated for 2.5 years. And so that kind of shifted things for me as well, you know, as being in a relationship does, because your priorities shift. And then that's when my nan passed away a week after we broke up. And then I went hard into working. So, you know, Andrew and I were together 2.5 years, and I just kind of lost interest in drinking. It didn't have the same fun that it did before, as well as because I had someone to go home with, so I didn't need to go out to a bar to look. So then, yeah, I went hard into working, but I was single, and so I was like, how am I going to meet someone? So I'm trying to go out to all these clubs and bars, and, you know, to no avail. And because I'm a tall girl, and, you know, back then you have to wear heels, so I'm like 6'2" with heels, so there's like hardly any guys that are tall enough for me. It's funny. And, you know, sometimes, back then, you know, a short guy would come up and I'd be like, no. Silly. So it was like this stage where drinking just wasn't fun anymore, like, and I could really feel the hangovers. Like back when I was like 18, I would go out, have like 2 hours sleep, then go to work at like 9 a.m. and work through till 5 p.m. and then go out again. Like, how on earth did I do it? And so, you know, I think my goals shifted as well. I really wanted to be successful in my career as a travel agent, and I was working weekends as well, so it just didn't really fit. And then, so I kind of stopped drinking except at work functions. And then being in those environments, I would see like husbands cheat on their wives because they got drunk and were horny, and it just really broke my heart. And again, this theme of people being like different when they drink. So I really hated it. I really didn't like it at all. And, you know, really good thing, my parents said to me that nothing good ever happens after midnight, so they would always pick me up at midnight from a party, and it was so true all the time. Even though like midnight was when everything was getting good, I would leave and go home and I would have had a good night, but say my friends who stayed, they would stay until like 3 or 4 and then end up, you know, vomiting in the paddock or like whatever. So I always ended my nights on a high, and so that theme kind of carried through. So I would always leave when things were good, because I'd be like, all right, I've had a good night, I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna stay until it gets so shit and I want to leave. As well as, you know, you could get taxis and like all this sort of thing, and sleep. So that became really important to me now that I was working. And so these experiences of watching males and females, but more so males, cheat on their partners when they were drinking just really broke me. It really upset me. And so at Flight Centre, there's like one male to 9 women, so it's like everywhere. And then 1 out of 10 men are straight, so there's lots of gay guys. But anyway, yeah, so the pivotal moment for me was, I think it was like 2014, and we'd won, I think, number 2 store in Australia. So all of our staff got to go to this 3-day all expenses paid party in Vegas with the other 3,000 top travel agents in Flight Centre from around the world. So it was like huge, and we had like, I'm pretty sure that's when we had Mark Wahlberg speak. I can't remember who the performers were. It was like Kylie Minogue. Like, it was just epic, so epic. And like staying at places like the Venetian, the MGM Grands, like, and then, you know, because we were the second store, our boss got us like this huge truck limo, so you could stand up inside it. Oh my God, so epic, right? So had this 3 days of drinking, partying, having the best time. And then on the Sunday, so we arrived Friday after a 22-hour flight, drinking and partying, because it was a chartered flight, so everyone was just standing up and having a good time. Then go straight into a pool party, and like it was just party. And then on the Sunday, I just felt so incredibly shit. Like, I was so tired and overwhelmed and depressed. I was so depressed, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I was like rocking back and forth with my knees up to my chest, bawling my eyes out on my bed. And I was like, this is horrible. I don't like feeling like this. And I realized that alcohol is a depressant, and so when you drink a lot over a couple of days, you then feel the effects. And so that's kind of when I went, I actually don't like this. I don't like the feeling afterwards. Like, it makes me feel really depressed, and I just don't like anything about it. Like, I like going out and socializing, but I actually don't like alcohol. So that was kind of that pivotal moment for me, where I would only ever have 2 drinks maximum, and that would be enough to kind of, you know, get me tipsy, like just a little bit, but not anything crazy. And, you know, a few, because those Flight Centre world events, like, there were times where I got so drunk that I don't know how I got back to my room, and I was like, oh, that's a bit dangerous. That could get me in bad situations, especially in another country. So I like pulled back on that and decided not to. And then, you know, I decided to only drink at the work functions, and then I was like, maybe I don't have to. So then I just kind of pulled away altogether. So that was kind of what happened there. And then it became, people were wanting me to drink and trying to get me to change my mind about not drinking, and have a drink with them, let's have fun. And I'm like, why do we have to have a drink to have fun? Why can't, you know, I'm happy if you drink, like, why do I have to drink? And so then it kind of became, I wasn't doing it because other people wanted me to do, the inner rebel. And, you know, same thing with my mum, because she grew up in the society where drinking is something social and fun to do, and something to connect with. So she wants to connect with me through drinking, and I'm like, no, I don't want a, what's the coffee one called? Espresso martini. I don't want an espresso martini. And the other thing is that I actually don't like the taste of alcohol. Like, I hate it. And that comes from drinking excessive amounts when I went to uni. So obviously could only afford goon. So I don't like wine at all. And I only like anything that doesn't taste like alcohol. I don't like beer. Like, anyway, I made myself so sick on it. So I just don't like it. And it's okay that I don't like it, but it's taken a really long time for me to accept and allow myself to not like it, and, you know, not be swayed by other people trying to convince me. So the other aspect of it is that I had an alcoholic father. So I grew up, you know, seeing my parents drink. That's, you know, how they relaxed and unwound. And then as I got older, my dad, I think I was trying to piece it together. I think after my dad's dad, my pop, committed suicide, I feel like that might be when there was a shift. But, you know, in speaking to my mum, I think that he was always like that. Maybe I just didn't remember it. But he would come home and almost every night guaranteed have 6 to 12 beers. And so I don't know if anyone else has experienced a parent who drinks a lot, but there's a shift in them. And so now my understanding of what alcohol does spiritually is it allows your inner demons or inner emotions to come out. So he would drink and become obnoxious and mean, and I really don't remember a lot, but I do remember, because I remember getting in the way between him and my brother, and saying, you know, trying to defend my brother and whatever, and he would just see red. Like, you literally, basically, when he was drinking, you couldn't say anything because anything would flip him off. And my mum used to say that he was like Jekyll and Hyde. He was this beautiful, loving, caring dad, do anything for you during the day, but then when the day was over and he was finished, he would start drinking, and then the snide remarks would come out, and, you know, and so you just had to sit there and say nothing, because otherwise he would erupt, he would explode. So that had a massive part in why I stopped drinking. But so when I got with my partner Andrew at 21, I said to him, you are not allowed to drink at home. Now I know that that's me trying to control him to control the outcome, which isn't a good thing to do. But, you know, my reason for doing it was because I knew that if my partner drank at home, in 10, 20 years time, he would be an alcoholic, because one beer is enough for a couple of years and then it becomes not enough. So then you have 2 beers and then it becomes not enough. So then you have 3 beers and then, you know, you have 6 beers and then you become someone who you actually aren't. And, you know, because I wore the pants in that relationship, because that's what I needed to do in order to keep myself safe, in order to protect myself, he respected that. Because when we actually first met, he had a drinking problem himself. In order to sleep every night, he would have like 4 Nurofen and half a bottle of Jack Daniels. I didn't know this at the time, and I didn't really think anything of it. He hid it from me because we obviously didn't live together. And then when we moved in together, that was something that he needed to work through, and he did, which was great. Now I can see that he had some demons inside him that he was trying to avoid, like literally. Anyway, so there's just this bit, my whole life there's been this huge observation of the people around me just using alcohol as a way to escape, as a way to avoid things, as a way to relax. Like, since when don't we know, like, why don't we know how to relax without substances? Isn't that crazy? You know, like, these should be things that we're taught how to do. And in saying that, you know, alcohol has a long history, and I probably should have like looked into some of that to kind of share it in this episode. But you know, what it was used for exactly that back then. And so we're moving into these times of changing what certain things mean to us and what we use them for. And we're also learning healthier ways of being. You know, this generation and this time right now in history is huge. It's where there's going to be a massive shift, because people are waking up and going, hold on, actually when I drink alcohol, it actually doesn't make me feel good. I actually feel like shit for 3 days after. And I'm not really sure if it's worth those couple of hours of feeling good. But, you know, some people are on their own journey and some people will never wake up to that. So my dad, when he was 40, he had a heart attack. And he was a smoker and a heavy drinker. And so the doctor said, you need to give up smoking and drinking. So he gave up smoking and changed his diet. But he still drank, but he drank light beer. That was his compromise because he couldn't give it up. Now, I understand being a trauma coach and having all the understanding that I have, that potentially his drinking was a way of avoiding everything from his childhood, because he had a terrible childhood. And all of his emotions, and that's why I say that I think that it got worse when his dad committed suicide, because obviously that makes sense. I think as well, I knew how many risks were involved when you were drinking, you know, drunk driving, like so many things. And so because I'm 13 months older than my brother, when he became 18, he was just crazy, partying, drinking, all this sort of stuff. And I said, I'm always going to have my phone on loud overnight. If you ever need me, please don't drink and drive. Don't get yourself into any of these situations. I'll come and get you. And so he would call me at 4 a.m. and I would take a bunch of his friends home because they didn't want to wait for a taxi. You know, one time he got so drunk that they were not so drunk. He was really drunk, but they were at a friend's house that had a pool, and so everyone was in the pool, you know, having a great time. And he said, let's climb up onto the roof and jump into the pool. So he climbed up on the roof, jumped in the pool, everyone went, and then he came back and went to go a second time, but because he was wet, it was slippery, he slipped off the roof and fell into the pointy railing on the side, the fence of the pool fence, and slit his arm open. So it was just a cut, but because his arm was so tight, it spread, and so it was like a gaping wound. And he was in so much shock that all he could say was, where's my sister? Get my sister, call my sister. Where's my sister? Get my sister, call my sister. And so they found someone who was sober enough to drive to the hospital, and then they rang me, and I went to the hospital and picked him up and watched him get stitches and all this sort of stuff. And so I just was so afraid of these sorts of things, happening to me, but I didn't want the people around me to have their life ruined, you know. And I think it also comes down to those bloody ads that were on when we were kids about these huge car crashes and, you know, it putting this fear in us around drinking. And I was like, I don't want that to happen to me. And also, I actually don't like alcohol. So I think I do occasionally have a drink if I feel like it. I think the last time I did was 2 years ago. I had one drink. And then probably same before that. And then before that was probably in Portugal. I had some sangria, because why not? It was amazing. It tasted delicious, but I just had one glass. I think as well, in giving up drinking, I've then had to sit with my emotions, and I haven't been able to avoid them. Actually, no, that's a lie. So after giving up drinking, I then turned to food. So food was a way of numbing my emotions. So takeaway and things like that, which, you know, then prompted gaining 50 pounds. Where are we? America? 50 kilos over a span of, 10 years or whatever. That'll be another episode. I also felt when I drank, whatever unprocessed feelings or upset or sadness was inside me would come out. So I didn't understand why some people wouldn't get upset. Like, I just couldn't understand how when I drink, I become a blubbering mess sometimes, but then other people don't. And I was just like, why am I so different? Like, why can't I just have a great time? And that was probably also because I left at midnight, right? After, when I was having a good time, and they probably continued, and maybe, or maybe they just continued to suppress it, or I don't know what was going on with them. But it was just really confusing, I think. So when we talk about drinking spiritually, alcohol is a low vibration. So it is a depressant. It makes you depressed. If you are a sad person, do not drink alcohol. It is not going to make you feel any better. It might make you feel better in the moment, but the after effects actually bring down your emotional vibration. So when we talk about raise your vibration, if you're wanting to raise your vibration, the first thing that you can do is stop drinking alcohol, because it will lower your vibration and make you feel lower emotions like sadness, fear, even anger, guilt, and shame. They're all those low vibration feelings, and sometimes that's why people become addicted, because when they drink, they don't feel those feelings because it numbs them out. But then when they sober up, they feel those feelings again, so they need to drink again. It is a really challenging thing to do because you don't have that coping strategy to not feel your feelings, and it does take a lot of courage to do, especially if you're in a friendship group that does a lot of drinking. And I want to recognize that in you if you are choosing to give up drinking or thinking about it. And I also want to give you permission to give yourself some leeway, and also give yourself as many chances to give it up as you can, as you need, I guess. You don't have to do it in one go. You can reduce until, it's just one drink, or it's just once a week, or, until you get to the stage where you don't want to do it anymore. When we try to force ourselves to do things, that's where we create our own resistance. So one of my favorite mantras is, how can I make this easy on myself? A part of our society at the moment is, one part of it is kind of about discipline, and there's something wrong with you if you can't do this. That is using shame and guilt to try and motivate you, which works until you get to a certain stage on your journey, and then what you actually need to move further is courage. So I invite you to make a tiny shift, even if it's just drinking less, and acknowledge and recognize yourself if you have already made that decision, because it's not an easy one, especially in a society like ours where it is so common for people to drink. So yeah, thanks for staying tuned. Hit the like and subscribe button, and please share it with any friends, and comment below if any of this resonates for you. I'll see you next time.